Hello everyone, this is the great Lord and Master, Osiron the Eternal, coming at you for what is going to be Osiron Tarot Spiral 9. This is going to be pretty amazing, I think. There's a lot going on. I'm actually going to link, there's actually two segments to this. The first part is going to be, I'm going to link the tarot to actual hard science in atomic structure and the true nature of polarity via electricity. And then the next part, after the second part, is going to be based on the number 12 in the relationship to numbers, but I'll save that for that section. Okay, now we see here the wheel of the Zodiac again. This is left over from the last video. You see the axis of the Great Lord here with the court cards surrounding it, and that goes in a processional vortex. What you see here is my crude example drawing of an atom, and you have the protons and neutrons in the middle and the circling electrons outside. And the reason I have that here is because the court cards of the tarot show us atomic structure. Okay, you'll see here on the staff of Hermes that is made up of this axis of the Great Lord. Here, you'll notice one thing, and this jumped out at me a couple days ago, and this really set off a chain of thought. You're going to notice that the kings don't share with anybody else, and they form a square, a perfectly even square. And if you were to stack this up to infinity, it would always go king, two spaces, king, two spaces, king. It would keep doing that, and it would be perfectly squared when you do that. And then if you look, you'll notice, now if the kings don't share with anybody, that obviously means the queens and the princes always share with each other. So the queens are here and the princes are here. They always share. It's always the queen and the prince together. And what is that? The queen is the mother and the prince is her child. And the king is the man. Okay. Now, there's one difference on this that is different from every other version of the staff of Hermes that I've drawn up until now. And that you'll notice is that I have the positive in blue here next to the queen. And why is that? Because we all know that electricity, positive is masculine, negative is feminine, and neutral is just neutral, right? We all know that. We all know that current flows from positive to negative. Everybody knows that. Well, what everybody knows is fucking wrong. That's not what goes on. And I just learned this recently because I've been, because of all these videos, I've wanted to learn more about exactly what we know about electricity. And I learned one thing a couple weeks ago that really changed everything, is that current doesn't flow from positive to negative. Current flows from what we call negative to the positive. That's how current flows. Now, every schematic on electricity has it showing the current flow from positive to negative, but that's not the case. Current flows from negative to positive. Okay, so now, up here I have the true operation of what's going on via the aspects of electricity and their sexual orientation, if you want to call it that. Up here we have the queen, and the queen's the feminine is positive. Okay, and the positive aspect of electricity is an attractive force. And we all know that women are naturally attractive creatures. I mean, if you're a beautiful woman, the world is going to be at your doorstep offering you everything that you can possibly want. That's just the way it is. I mean, there's no such thing as a lonely, beautiful woman. The only way a woman who's really beautiful is going to be lonely is just because every guy that comes at her is just completely, she's so overwhelmed by the onslaught of attention that, she's lonely in a different way than a man will be lonely. A woman's going to be lonely for authenticity, not attention. A man, on the other hand, will be lonely for anything, because when a man is lonely, he's lonely because he just doesn't have anybody in his life. But a beautiful woman is not going to have that problem. So, the positive aspect of electricity is an attractive force. The kings, or the masculine aspect, is negative, and that is it's a force that repels. So the masculine repels and the feminine attracts, okay? And the neutral is neutral. So now when you change that, it changes the nature of electricity, and it also changes the nature of the current flow, because current flows from negative to positive, which the negative in this case is masculine, to positive. So the electrons, so when you apply this to an atom, the queens are going to be the protons, the princes are going to be the neutrons, and the kings are going to be the electrons. So you have the queens and the princes, or the protons and neutrons inside the center of the atom here, the nucleus. Okay, this is where the protons and neutrons go, and the electrons, or the kings, are circling outside of that. Okay, and that's the nature of the atomic structure. And that is the court cards. The court cards are showing you this relationship, because the queens and the protons are together, and the kings are isolated by themselves outside of it. So we're seeing this amazing correlation to that. So, but that's a pretty significant thing about electricity, because electricity is, the way electricity is presented to us in textbooks is fucking wrong. Clearly wrong. And there's even, it even goes deeper than that. If you look into the works of Walter Russell, his ideas of electricity are a lot different than convention too. And but the the idea that the nature of electricity was written to be masculine favorable and masculine dominant shows how all of our history was written to be masculine favorable and masculine dominant. So in our world, even in fucking hard science, I mean, there isn't much more hard science than atomic structure and electricity. Those are the key foundations of scientific thought, basically, electricity and atomic structure. And even those concepts were written and designed favorable to the masculine. And the same thing in mythology and religion, all of it. This goes back to at least the time of Abrahamism, when this evil cult took over the world and started doing their damage and spreading throughout all the lands and destroying the people and the culture and the beliefs there. Because once upon a time, the world was in harmony with nature in its maternal superiority. It's not even superiority, because it's not about that. See, the idea that there's a superior aspect is sort of ridiculous, because it's not really like that. All of the components work together. The protons and the neutrons, or the queens and the princes, need the electrons doing their proper job. So it's not a case of the feminine is superior. It's putting the proper reason for existence in order, because the feminine principle at root is the principle of beauty, and the electrons, or the kings, are supposed to be the servant, or the knight are supposed to be the servant for the greater beauty. And we're seeing this in atomic structure here. Very, very powerful. And now I'm going to jump into something that was supposed to be an additional aspect of this. And it's just, I was going to add this in a couple of videos, but I didn't. So this has been kind of hanging around for a while. Down here in the bottom, you're going to see a string of numbers from 1 to 100. Okay, and what these numbers are is, if when you take any of the single digits, or any of the digits at all, and you reduce, in this case, the numbers between 1 and 100, if you take all the numbers between 1 and 100 that reduce to a 1, okay, that comes to be 12 numbers in total. And what you see is 1, 10, 19, 28, 37, 46, 55, 64, 73, 82, 91, and then 100. All of those numbers reduce to 1. Okay? And now you're going to notice something pretty interesting. Somewhere near the middle of this thing is the number 55. And that reduces to 1, obviously. And the reason I say near the middle of it, because it's not dead center, okay? What we have is, in the 7th position from 1, the 7th position is 55, and the 12th position is 100. And you're going to notice that all of the numbers on either side of this 55 are exactly mirrored. So what that means is you got 55, and then on the, to either side you got 46, then 64, then you got 37, then 73, then you got 28, then 82, and then you got 19 and 91, and then you got 110 and 1. And what you're going to notice is the numbers between this 1 and this 7, on this side is 5, and on this side is 4. And we all know that 5 and 4 reduce to 9. Okay? And then, if you add all the numbers, the 10, 19, 28, 37, 46, that comes to 140, and that reduces to 5. And if you add this set, it becomes to 310, which reduces to 4. And now you're going to notice something too, is that even in this machination of the numbers, the feminine precedes the masculine. Now this might be a higher number than 4, but in the order of operations, it's a feminine number that precedes the masculine. So feminine first, masculine second. So we're seeing that again. And they're perfectly mirrored, as I said, and it's amazing. And it goes feminine, masculine in the order of number structure too. So you're going to see 1, which is a feminine number, and then you got 10, which is 1 and 0, but that takes the place of masculine. Now I've said 1,000 times that 10 is a masculine expression of 1, and it is. And it also, if you watch the video, The Nature of 8, and then the one after that, it shows how 1 is a feminine number except when it's with 0. When 1 is with 0, it's a masculine number when it's by itself. So when 0 and 1 are together, 1 takes on the masculine aspect, and 0 is a feminine. And we're seeing that same thing with 10, because 1 is feminine, and the next number is only a 1 and a 0, but it's a masculine. The next number is 19, which is feminine, and it's also comprised of 2 feminine numbers. And then 28 is the masculine, and it's comprised of 2 masculine numbers. 37, the same thing. 2 feminine is feminine. Masculine, 2 masculine numbers. 55 is in the middle, 2 feminine. 64 is 2 masculine numbers. 73 is feminine with 2 feminine. 82 is masculine with 2 masculine. 91 is feminine with 2 feminine. And 100, again, is a 1 and 0, but it takes a masculine position. Okay, now, you're going to notice something. When you see the numbers between 1 and 100, that's a nice little package. That's a nice tight little package. And most people would think that that is just one number group. 1 to 100 is one number group. And I guess it could be, depending on the context, but it's actually not. The numbers 1 to 100 actually are comprised of 3 separate number groups. It starts out with the 1, and this is also why it's imbalanced too, a part of why it's imbalanced and not dead center. So when you take the 1, those are the 1s. That 1 is in the 1s group, and that's it. There's only 1 there. And then when you add 9 more numbers, it becomes 10, and the 10s group are comprised of 10 numbers. So the 10 group is comprised of 10 numbers, and then it jumps into the 100s. So those are 3 distinct number groups: 1s, 10s, and 100s. And so the numbers from 1 to 100 are done in 12 digits, but there's 3 distinct number groups in. What does 12 reduce to? 3. So the 12 reduces to 3, and there are 3 distinct number groups: the single digits, the 10s, and then the 100s. And now, what I did was, this is from 1 to 100, and it forms this beautiful little image that's balanced, mirrored, and symmetrical, and reveals 9, because the way that you get every number to reduce to 1 is you start out with 1, and then you just keep adding 9 to that. So 1 plus, you add a 1, and then you add 9 to that, it gives you 10. You add 9, it gets 19. You add 9, 28, and so on and so forth. So I took this all the way to 1,000 to see what would happen. And what happens is, if you go from 1 to 1,000 and put them in rows of 12, it's comprised of 112 digits. And when you do that, it shows the rows have an offset of all the rows of 0 through 9, sort of like the video I made of the single digit code, how the numbers have a natural offset. Well, this is the same thing. So every row starts out with 0 offset and it ends with 9 numbers offset. And those 112 digits from 1 to 1,000 are created by 9 rows, 9 complete rows, plus 4 numbers. And you'll notice on the Osiron tarot spiral here, if you remember, these two houses, these two bottom house tarot cards form a 9, and these two top house tarot cards form a 4, which gives you a 9 and then a 4. So we're seeing the same thing here, 9 and a 4, and you add 9 and 4, and it gives you 13. And what is the Zodiac? It's 12 houses plus the Fool, the center point, gives you 13. So the 13 is again sneaking in here. And what is 13? 4. 13 reduces to a 4, and then you got the 4 quadrants. You got winter, spring, summer, and fall. So all of this links together. But now, there was something that was bothering me about that I had to figure out is, let me show you here. I can't really put this on the board because it would just be crazy, but let me show you what these are. These are the numbers. This is the number sequence in rows of 12, okay? And you see how there's like a little stair step in that? Well, what that is the offset. That is the offset. You'll notice that the bottom row goes 1 to 100, okay? It goes 1 to 100, and then there's no offset. And then the next row goes 109 to whatever the fuck that is, 208. So that row has one number of the 2s of the 200 set creeping into that. The rest of them are in the 100s. And the next one has, has the next series creeping in too. So you got the 200s and then on it goes, and the offset goes. You just kind of look at this. You got to look at this because there's so much going on. This is what happens when you do it in groups of 12. Okay. Now I did it several more times because I noticed something. So I did it with 11. I did it with 11 because you're going to notice an oddity here. You know, the reason why this isn't perfect is because there is an oddity. This 1 to 0, because this is a single and this is a 10, there's an oddity here. That's why the 91 and the 19, well, there's 2 more numbers on this side, and there's only fucking 1 number on this side. Now it's 3 digits and there's 3 on this side, but that's a whole other story. But so when I did it in groups of 11, the bottom one here is 11, and this you really got to look at. If you could pause this, because you notice the bottom one is on the outside here, and then the 1,000 up here, is outside of all that. You're going to see in a minute why that's important. But that stair step, these numbers do a lot of amazing things with the nature of the numbers. If you look at this, you're going to notice some really great symmetry going on. You're going to see the nature of 0. Let me see if I can fucking do this. You're going to see the nature of, in the center of all of these first rows is 0. Then the center number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 9. So every row has a double number. For example being, I'll use the rows of 5 as an example. It starts out with the center number being 0, and in the 5s it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a second 5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9. Every row does this in the 11s. So the number 3s, the 3s for example, starts out with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8, 9. And the stair step inside of this runs right through the middle of that double number. Okay, and that does that. But these are in rows of 11, and the reason I did that is because I took out the 1, I put the 1 outside of this, and it forms an even group of 11 rows. It forms 10 rows of 11, and then the 1,000 jumps to the next row. So, but that's still a little bit off, okay? So then what I did is I drew it up in 10s, and 10 reveals something pretty amazing. The top section here is the 10. Okay, the top is the 10, and you're going to notice the very bottom has one number 1, The next row has 10 of the double digits, and then the triple digits, or the hundreds, is comprised of 10 rows of 10, or 100 units of numbers, and then the 1,000, you'll see the 1,000 up here. This is hard to do backwards. You see the 1,000 up here breaks out of it. So every 10 or 100 or 1,000 isn't part of the preceding group. Okay? Because you're going to see the 1 here. The 1, so that's all by itself. The next row is the 10s, which is 10 of them. And then when you get from 10, it ends at 91, and then the next number is 100, and that starts the 100 groups. And the 100 goes all the way up through all the numbers, and then it ends at 991, and then 1000 starts the 1,000 groups. And the 1,000 would keep going all the way up to 10,000, and the 10,000 would begin its own thing, and the 10,000 group would be comprised of 1,000 digits. So you're seeing the nature of 10 and the numbers when you reduce them to 1 and how it really works. So this is shown, and all this is comprised of 9. So I guess what that means is, to make a long story short, is that the 10 structure of numbers is broken up into the groups of 10 as the sterile framework of the numbers, but the life of those numbers, as I've showed, especially in the single digit code video, the life of the numbers is derived from the interaction of its 9. So the 9 is the life of the number system, but the 10 structure is just a sterile framework. When we use mathematical concepts like the metric system, we're using the numbers in a sterile way that doesn't have any life to it. That's why it's so important to not abandon the numbers 12, the number 12 as a unit of measure, because that's a divine measurement. There is places for using other systems, but not in anything you build, as I've explained 1,000 times. So this is that. I hope this comes out good, because I know, because I can't really draw that up on the board because it would just be a mess, I suppose I could try, but hopefully I'll watch this to see how it comes out. Hopefully that captures itself. But you're really going to want to look at those numbers and see how they interact, because they are amazing. The way those numbers interrelate like that, it forms like streams backwards and forwards. There's so much going on with that, and in a lot of cases it reveals the single digit code of 0 through 9 in its machinations. Sometimes it'll go 0 first, and then it'll count down from 9 to 1, like in the tens, on the tens groups, or when I have it broken into 10s, 10 rows of 10. When I have it broken into 10 rows of 10, it starts you kind of have to look at it, but it starts out 0, and then it goes 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it counts down. But the biggest point of that is, see, the numbers between 1 and 1,000 they don't form a 10-based structure of numbers. So meaning, the numbers between 1 and 1,000 aren't, say, 100 numbers. That's not what it is. The 100 numbers only comes from the 100 groups, and the 10 from the 10 group, and the 1 from the 1 group, and the thousands would be 1,000 numbers to get that. So that's where we're seeing the truth of what the 10 or the 10 structure of the number code is really supposed to be. It's not supposed to be the primary unit of measure. It's supposed to be just the framework for a greater expression of numbers that finds its life through the machinations of 9, if that makes any sense. But look at that and see, because the number of digits used when you do this, I'll show this. Okay, you got 100 for the 100 groups, you got 10 numbers for the 10 groups, and then you got 1 number for the 1 group. So if you take that 1, if you reduce all these numbers, you got 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and then the 1,000 group would be another 1. So that is 1, 2, 3, and 4 again. So we're seeing 4. We're seeing a 4 when you count all those numbers. And then we got the 9 rows plus 4 single digits is 9 plus 4 equals 13. And same thing on the actual Osiron tarot spiral itself. We got 9 on the bottom, we got the 4 on the top, and that comes to 13, which reduces to 4. So we're seeing these powerful links to these sometimes obscure numbers, or numbers that show up all the time, like 13 or 4. You know, 4 is a very, very powerful number, as all these videos show. So thank you and namaste. Oh, and the title for this is going to be The Tarot, the Zodiac, and Hard Science. And one last thing I want to get to, because I drew this and I want to get to it. Over here you're going to see what the numbers do. So I explained this already, but you got the 1, the 10, and the 19. Well, in between each of those numbers is 8 numbers between each of them. And that takes 9 numbers to do that. So 1 plus 9 gives you 10. 10 plus these 8 numbers gives you 19, but it's 9. So that number counts as 1 too. So it's every 9. So the life of this is for 9. And this is just only using numbers that reduce to 1. The same thing applies to every other fucking digit too. That's the beauty of it. So if you reduce every number, if you isolate every number that reduces to 2, well, you're going to get the same thing, just different numbers. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all of it. It goes all the way up. So thank you, and namaste.